Hi. We are super excited to launch our IGTV series on Colorado wine, going kind of beyond even our wines and talking about the greater scope. And first of all, I'm Jamie, and this is my husband, Steve.
Hi.
We are the farming and winemaking duo behind our project here in Hotchkiss, Colorado, called the Storm Cellar. And recently, the Colorado Association for Viticulture and Enology, along with the Colorado Wine Industry Development Board, they've launched a campaign to bring awareness to Colorado wine, not only to Colorado consumers, but to consumers nationwide. And so they have created the hashtag Colorado Wine Challenge. And so we're excited to taste through 4 different wines tonight and kind of talk you through. And we've chosen a specific variety, different expressions, and excited to taste some wine tonight.
Yeah, we were just going through our cellar. A lot of us are trapped at home, rummaging through our wine cellars and seeing what we've got there because we're all kind of staying at home.
Kind of like the whole theory about, you want to make this recipe and you're going through your cupboard and kind of rediscovering, what you have on hand. And we've kind of been doing the same thing with our wines.
Yeah, so we found, in addition to one of ours, we found 3 great sort of off-dry styles of Colorado Riesling from very different corners of the state, from very different producers, very different climatic situations, and we're really excited to taste through these tonight.
They're all tasting great. We had a little we wanted to make sure each bottle was healthy and ready to go, and it's really fun. We were pleasantly surprised at the diversity among these 4 bottles made by different winemakers utilizing the same grape. So first up,
we're going to start here. So this wine is from the Evening Grace Estate. These are our neighbors here in the West Elms AVA. Their winery's right around the corner from us in Hotchkiss, Colorado. But these grapes are actually sourced from Olathe, Colorado. This is a really interesting wine to throw into the mix. This is a 2010 vintage Riesling.
It's the oldest Riesling that we have in the lineup tonight.
By a long way for sure. Certainly one of the most frequent questions we get asked is are any of your wines meant to age? What should we be drinking now? What should we lay down? And it comes as a surprise to most people, but Riesling is arguably the most age-worthy wine in the world. It has amazing acidity, has amazing sweetness a lot of times, both of which can act as natural preservatives for the wine. So it's really great to taste a wine that's 10 years old, white wine from out here on the Western Slope that is showing really amazing right now. Intense aromatics.
Yeah,
really
it jumps out of the glass.
Start to get those secondary notes that you get with Riesling once it starts to age. At first, when Riesling's young, a lot of times you just get the fruit notes. You get these peachy, apricot, limey notes, but as it ages, all these really interesting earthy notes start to come into play too.
Yeah, on the nose, like Steve said, it just jumps out of the glass. Honestly, you get these honeyed nuances, slight little petrol note, which is a common descriptor with Riesling, especially aged Riesling, and we'll taste these together. Like I said, this is a 2010. We'll be tasting 2017 and 2 2018s here tonight, and the younger ones really have a freshness, vibrance, a lot of fruit notes, but those subtle undertones that are here in this are just super complex. And even on the palate, this one is bone dry. I'd say it's the driest out of the 4 that we're tasting tonight.
Driest of the 4 for sure. But it's drinking beautifully right now. It's aged wonderfully.
Like a little bit of honeyed apricot, but not sweet. Just that, that richer texture. Honestly, with this aged Riesling, it makes me crave like a charcuterie plate. It makes me crave like salty, aged, funky cheese. That would just be...
That sounds perfect.
Yeah. I might even go something like, because it has such a complexity and that acid is still there and it's bone dry, you might even be daring and do something like with little sardines on toast, maybe some manchego. It sounds just about perfect.
Some of the things that are traditionally not good food pairing options can go with an aged, really dramatic wine like this, for sure. Something that'll stand up to those intense flavors.
Go first. Yeah, we've been pruning lately, so this is the pruning attire. It was super windy, so we came in a little early and thought it would be just the perfect time to, to be able to share some wine with you and with us. So next up we have Whitewater Hill. Whitewater Hill is owned by John and Nancy, and they are out of, not Hotchkiss, but Palisade. They're actually outside off the beaten path and totally worth that tiny little bit of drive. A lot of people think like Palisade is the only place. They are a little off the beaten path in Whitewater Hill, and they make outstanding wines. This wine in particular is 2018, and it won a double gold at the Governor's Cup in 2019. So, am I correct on those dates? Pretty sure.
This is 2017.
2017. So they won double gold in 2018. There we go. So this wine is considered semi-sweet. It's just lightly sweet. You really get a lot of floral. Jasmine, gardenia. I was mentioning to Steve earlier, we spent a lot of time at the Denver Botanic Gardens, and you go inside their greenhouse and it just smells like it's this flower filled, you're in this humid environment, which is not not the growing, circumstances over there in the Palisade or Grand Valley area, but you're really getting like this unctuous lily. It's tropical and dense on the nose.
Much more opulent fruit profile on this wine for sure. You can tell that it was grown someplace warmer. The acidity is a little more subdued.
A little softer.
But really amazing texturally.
The texture is what I am super drawn to on this particular wine. And just a lengthy finish. This is a Riesling that I could absolutely drink on its own. Might have to pour a glass after this to enjoy.
Beautiful floral, slight bits of grassy aromatics, balanced with just the right amount of sweetness.
And the sweetness factor, a lot of times in a wine, adds weight to it. You hear about light-bodied and full-bodied. Contrasting to this Evening Grace wine, their Riesling, lean, angular, really lighter on the palate, still with a lot of complexity. But this one, because of that little extra sweet factor, you get this texture play, and it is a little bit more weighty and rich on the palate, but balanced with just the right amount of acidity.
Nice job, Whitewater Hill. This definitely deserves that double gold medal.
And just because work needs to be done, gonna dump out the rest. So we thought it would be, we're kind of lining these up by dry to sweet. So dry on the spectrum, Evening Grace, and it'll go sweetest toward Bridge Winery. So next up we have our own wine. Lineup wise, we got a double gold medal at the Colorado Governor's Cup this past year in 2019 for our 2018 off-dry Riesling. And so we grow grapes here at almost 6,000 feet above sea level. And really contrast wise between these two wines right here, we're about 1,500 feet-ish above where a lot of the grape growing region over in Grand Valley is.
Everybody thinks right away that Colorado wine growing country, that's going to be a cold climate grape growing region. Well, the Grand Valley, where Whitewater Hill is from, is actually full throttle desert basically. Certainly it is at 4,500 to 5,000 feet elevation, but it is also a full throttle desert climate. 100 degrees for a lot of the summer, so grapes do not have trouble getting right there. Like Jamie said, for contrast, our estate vineyard here is almost at 6,000 feet elevation, one of the highest elevation vineyards in the northern hemisphere. And those dramatic elevation changes do affect the profile of the grapes. Absolutely, you can taste it.
Along with winemaking styles too, but really there is a dramatic difference in the actual climate. We're more of an alpine desert, I say, climate. We're higher, very close to the Rocky Mountains to our east. And on the nose, this particular one that I keep saying but the Storm Cellar 2018 off-dry Riesling is also floral, but the floral profile, I'd say, is more of like almost like dried grass. It's chamomile. It's like dried tea, and it's a little subtle. It's very elegant, refined, not as unctuous, and kind of like, with Whitewater Hill, it lends you to think of like it's going to be this fuller bodied wine. Automatically, I kind of think it's going to be a little bit more angular, a little leaner, but on the palate.
We inherently are able to preserve such amazing natural acidity in our grapes here because of growing at this elevation, and then multiply that by the fact that Riesling has natural acidity in spades, so we're able to get a really ripe style. I think this wine ended up, for us personally, we know all our tech pretty well, we ended up with 27 grams residual sugar in here. We poured this for lots of people who thought it was a dry version of a Riesling, or just slightly off dry. And that's because of that incredible balance between the sweetness and the natural acidity that we get from our vineyard here.
And another reason, a lot of people want a lower alcohol wine. And, this particular wine, all of these kind of are in that 13 plus or minus % alcohol range. And in Colorado, we have such a compact growing season that we have to let the grapes hang, specifically Riesling, a little longer, because if we picked where we wanted to have a lower alcohol content, honestly, we wouldn't have those sugar levels to even make it drinkable. You have to have a ripeness factor to balance out that high acid. Otherwise, you might be just like, picking it and making lemon juice. But again, this is like, lean on the palate. Flavor pairing wise or food pairing wise, if you go to Pesh restaurant in Palisade, Chef Matt has an amazing dish. It's a deconstructed Peking duck presentation, and with this off-dry style, it is tasting delicious. And if we lived a little closer, we'd be there a little too often.
We have this restaurant being poured at the restaurant Q House, modern Chinese restaurant in Denver that was just up for James Beard best new restaurant in the country this last year, and they're pouring this in with their spicy Szechuan, super fiery Asian cuisine. This wine is truly outstanding. There's this magical moment that happens in food and wine pairing with a sort of off-dry style like these, where you pair it with spicy food, which is usually forbidden territory in food and wine pairing, but the sweetness and the heat almost cancel each other out, and you're left with all these amazing savory components in the dish and all these amazing fruity and flowery components in the wine that are hidden by either the sweetness or the heat of those respective dishes. It's a really amazing
and
food
combined with
moment.
like all of the fresh herbs that are used a lot of times, like basil, it just makes all of the different like the peach notes and any herbaceous note in the wine pop. So well, we'll move on to our next wine. Last in the lineup, but definitely not least, so this is Bridge Winery. Again, this is our neighbor out of the West Elks AVA, and Lee and Kathy have been making wine out here, growing all kinds of fruit and vegetables within this region. So they're not limited to just wine at their place. And so this is their Marcelina Riesling. Again, this is 2018, so really interesting contrast between our winemaking style versus theirs in this 2018 year. 2018 is one of the hottest, driest years on record for our area. And we really had to balance with, we had to work with nature. It was, the sugar levels were rising, you get this pace usually where sugar levels can be going up 1 to 1.5 degrees Brix a week. You've got your picking dates planned. Those plans go out the window sometimes, a lot of times. In this particular year, the Brix or sugar levels were rising. One week it jumped like 3 degrees Brix. And it's really interesting to see the ripeness level and the different notes that we're getting out of both of these wines compared to like what we got in our 2019s, which are in tank. And the 2019s have a lot more pronounced acidity because we had to pick due to a frost that came into play. So let's give this a little nose. I know you've gotten to while I've been talking, so.
Sure. One of my other favorite things to compare about these two wines, we like to make the reference to Napa Valley. When Napa Valley as an AVA was first established, it was just Napa Valley. And right away, people recognized the difference between wines grown in some place like Oakville on the valley floor and in between some place like Mount Veeder or Howell Mountain up on the mountainsides, how dramatically different in flavor profile those were. Yeah. But we're dealing with the exact same thing here. The Bridge Winery and vineyards are down in the valley here. They're growing in an alluvial floodplain right next to the river. They barely even have to irrigate. They're growing with their grapes saturated with groundwater because they're right next to the river. Our vineyard for the Storm Cellar is 500 feet higher on a mesa, and it is absolutely alpine desert, no hint of water at all for ours. So it is, even within our unique AVA. We're literally
There's a lot of diversity.
10 minutes apart. It is two absolutely different styles of wine.
Back to irrigating, I know Steve and I were asked this question, and we would always ask winemakers this question: do you dry farm? A lot of times winemakers or grape growers will dry farm, not irrigate, because they want the vines to struggle. Up here on our mesa, we have rocky soil. It does not hold water well at all. We might get a good dump of rain and immediately it's drained out. It's great, it's well-drained soil, but if we didn't irrigate, our vines would die up here. So we do irrigate. We're really kind of jealous of Lee and Kathy's situation and a few other growers where they're just like, we don't irrigate at all because they're down there by the water table. So on the nose.
Great wine, Lee and Kathy. You guys did an amazing job.
This is solid, yeah. We are loving it.
Right away, it's the sweetest of the bunch. Not anywhere near dessert wine level sweetness, just a sweet style of Riesling, but beautiful acidity to back up that sweetness.
Absolutely.
Classic notes, really peachy,
It's
rich
like you just
stone
squeezed
fruit,
a lime too.
lime zest.
Really fresh and vibrant. And like you said, Steve, it's a good texture. To me, it's like I'd say the most spherical, most in unison wine out of the four. Not that that's a better thing or a worse thing. It's just interesting because it's not, pushing acid in your face, pushing fruit in your face. It's kind of just this pleasant, drinkable, delicious wine. Really well done.
Well, we thought we'd start with Riesling, the most noble and yet most underrated grape and most underappreciated and understood grape here in Colorado. It bridges such a broad spectrum from dry styles to medium sweet styles, full sweet styles, dessert wines, sparkling wines. So we thought we'd crack 4 today. We've got a handful of other wines lined up to.
Really excited. We have a lineup for
with you.
Pinot Gris, a great lineup of Chardonnay. So we're really excited to rise to the challenge.
Well.
All right, well, cheers. Cheers to Team Riesling. And, in the comments of this, call out your favorite Riesling producers, and we need to drink to that because it's bad luck if we don't. So, cheers. Well, thanks for joining us. Definitely, if you have any questions, reach out. Again, just to recap the producers that we shared today, we have Evening Grace in the West Elks AVA. We have Whitewater Hill out of the Grand Valley. And we have Bridge Winery. That was the last wine that we tasted. And that's here in the West Elks AVA, about 10 minutes from where we are. And we have the Storm Cellar, which is, you're sitting in the Storm Cellar kitchen right now. We'd film outside where it's a little bit more interesting, but the wind was ripping today. So we're happy to come in early from pruning and share some wine with you.